Okay, so we've taken a look. We had an introduction. We talked a little bit about microphones, and then we had some general issues and properties to address. So we went about talking about microphone sensitivity, microphone frequency response, polar patterns, dynamic range, signal flow and issues related to that, some about noise and distortion, and a couple other issues that were related to the actual microphones in a general way. Some of those things we didn't get real in depth into yet, but at least we've covered the ground enough to where we have some basic general understandings of some of the general things that we'll be dealing with when we're dealing with microphones. So, at the end of the series, then I'm most definitely going to do a vid or two on using the microphones in proper use, and I'm also going to put you through a video of my opinion. Because I think that, by the time we get done, I'm going to give you a direct opinion on what I think, how you should approach the microphone to save yourself a lot of money, a lot of headache, and a lot of time, and a lot of confusion and frustration. So basically at this point that, we've got a pretty good foundation with all the videos that we watched from my channel and from the series so far to go ahead and look at actual microphones. So, that way that we're going to take a look at dynamic microphones, condenser microphones, piezoelectric microphones, ribbon microphones, and maybe a couple other microphones that are going to be the general use microphones in the studio that we'll be using. And we're going to break them down to their basic components and how they function so that we can have a really good understanding of what they're doing with the audio signal, how they're processing it through just the transducer, and so that we have a real good understanding of what's happening, because that's going to give us a much better understanding of how to use the microphone. And that way, when we're talking about using the microphone, we've got a much better understanding of why. It's not, Bob telling you to put the microphone 6 inches away from there when you have no understanding of the inner workings of the microphone or the issues that we've talked about so far, that, you're just going to nod your head and say, okay, well, Bob said so. That, that's not the proper use of the microphone because you don't understand what's going on with it. So we're going to break them down to their basic components and analyze what's going on there inside their basic components and how they're put together so that we can have a really good understanding of, why we'd want to use this microphone in a certain way. And, and that way that if we ever, when we get done, that we'll talk about it some. And also that if you ever watch another video on somebody talking to you about microphone techniques or micing their toms or, Whitney Houston or, Bob's Garage Band or whatever, your guitar, I don't know, then you're going to have a much better understanding of the basic components, the general issues that you're dealing with, so that when you're seeing that kind of stuff, that you can really make a well-informed decision on what's happening there. And also for purchases, and, so that you can have a much better understanding of what you're dealing with, so that you make a much more well-informed decision on those things. And also when something new comes out, something else that somebody tells you, well, this is some new thing, that you've got a pretty good understanding what's happening, and whether or not you want to go spend another $500, $1,000, or what, something on some microphone, or some system that's, microphone related, because you've got a really good understanding of the basics and, the basic structures and concepts that, the microphone's built from to, to do the proper work that you want to do, to get done what you want to do in the proper environment. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first one we're going to look at is dynamic microphones.